Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media. Welcome again to a continuation of the live briefings the African National Congress is doing on the sidelines of the National Executive Committee meeting. We did make an undertaking through the statement that was read out by the Secretary General yesterday morning about one of the matters that are pertinent on the agenda of the NEC. And we did make an undertaking to then bring in our team, our strike force in that environment, to come and account to the nation about the strides we're making to tackle some of the service delivery matters that, as we know, are referred to as several burning platforms. And here I am flanked by two comrades who are also part of the subcommittee, in fact, and the task team that is looking at service delivery interventions. Also Comrade Thembi Nkadimeng to my left, who is well known to you yourselves, even in previous briefings, responsible for the interventions we're also making in improving local governance in our country, and who also is deployed in government, as a member of the NEC, deployed in government as a Minister of Cooperative Governance, and deputized in that role by Comrade Paxson Potau to my right. And they will then just give you an account of what has been discussed by the National Executive Committee in terms of accelerated service delivery, fixing the state of municipalities, and they would also frame that around reflections on the perspective of the ANC on the outcome of the recently issued 2022 census report by the Statistician General of South Africa. Those are the three main talking points this morning. I don't want to belabor that point and take more time so that we can have enough time in our Q&A. I will then invite Comrade Thembi to speak, and then Comrade Parks will be more than happy to also support her in taking questions, and then we will just run in that particular order. Over to you, Comrade Thembi. I'm going to ask Comrade Thembi to then move this side for amplification.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mahlengi, and good morning once more to Comrade Parks. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think I'm just going to do a brief opening statement, remarks emanating from what Mahlengi has just said. Pertaining to issues, firstly, I mean, one of our key responsibilities is intergovernmental relation and cooperation management in government, ensuring that we strengthen, we ensure that we align, we create synergy, collaboration, so that there's one participation. And the President, as you know, then launched the district development model within that spirit to ensure that there's one government, there's one plan, there's one budget, meaning the responsibilities of all the departments don't necessarily go to COCTA, but our role is to harness the coordination. And in the same vein, our responsibility then, even in terms of relation with sister departments or sector departments, as we may call them, is more about cooperation, monitoring what they do in assistance of also creating a user-friendly and a friendly space where municipalities are operating. You will recall and know very well that our country system of local government, each and every corner and piece of land is situated in a particular ward, in a particular municipality. So whether it's a farm, vast open land, is located within a particular ward. In some instances, because of demarcation, it may even overlap into another ward. So which means even if there's human settlement, the houses, as census indicate, over 3 million houses in the period has been built, are located within a municipality. A municipality has a role to avail land to create a formal settlement, in this instance of an example. The same with water, the same with schools, prisons, and all that. So we have a great responsibility of what we are doing now in developing the capacity of municipalities to be able to be responsive to the overall delivery of services to government, in the same vein with regard to infrastructure. That is why in some instances we even invest and look beyond what you call municipal infrastructure by design. Yes, we will have your water, wastewater treatment works and plants for potable water, where we also invest jointly with the water and sanitation to ensure that they deal with bulk SPL, or we deal with reticulation to ensure that so there has to be connection between ourselves and those. Obviously, we have issues of governance and administration that is besetting our municipalities, difficulties. We have got issues of governance of coalitions as well. So even the capacity that you develop or the management that you do is within a context of what is faced currently by that particular council or municipality. So it's not all coalitions where you find, or it's not only in coalitions where you'll find instability or difficulties with governance or administration. Even in municipalities that are one party or relatively minor parties led, you will find such. And then we have got infrastructure investment, where we look, for example, in energy. Besides the normal figures which we get, we are overrun 90%, as the census has indicated in its release in the past few days. But we're also looking into issues of the green economy, and Comrade Parks may be able to add into that. One last area I may want to touch at is, it's not necessarily a new challenge, but it's a prevalent challenge now, climate change. Yesterday we were in summer, today I'm not sure what day. You know, we're all not very much certain whether the conditions, and they come with very erratic weather patterns. So our response and mitigation strategies led by our National Disaster Management team and a committee that resides in Kokta coordinate all the provinces, including the 44+8 districts, so in the 52 spaces where there is a responsibility by law of ensuring that municipalities and metros become responsive jointly with provincial government. So strategies on how do we enhance, how do we change, but how do we ensure that our response rate is agile, is linked strictly into what your Weather Commission will be saying in terms of early warning systems, which we now almost have in all the areas. On a day-to-day, we are now able to receive in all our centers what are the possibilities of fire, what are the response. We're busy with audits which regard to everybody who should be able to meet the requirements of whatever form of disaster that we are likely to have. And we are part also of so many agreements as a country to ensure that we are aligned to that. I might have not talked at length with regard to infrastructure, but some of the additions, maybe questions, may be leading us to some of the areas of what we would want. But what, in a nutshell, did census says to us? We may be having difficulties, but life is not the same as it was in 1994. Municipalities may be having a difficulty in administration and governance, but we have really moved in terms of ensuring, even in areas, in rural areas where there was no refuse collection. If today census is saying we're beyond 50%, yes, we're not saying it's enough, it's sufficient, but it says even in an area where there was no any form of reticulation in any way, it has been attempted to reach that space. Of course, we deal with moving target. I mean, tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll be dealing with municipalities, for example, that are in the boundaries of borders, and the impact negatively and positively that migration could have into them. These are different dynamics of, it may not happen in any other municipality, but in most instances, they pass through to a particular area. And in the studies, it indicates that they mostly pass to metros and secondary cities. So they'll be coming from Zimbabwe. Yes, they'll pass through Musina. They may pass through to Polokwane, but they're headed mostly to Johannesburg. So the growth of the city of Johannesburg will then indicate, and hence you now begin to see, contrary to what you had, for example, in our 10, 15-year review of local government in the past years, the indication of urban poverty was very minimal. But now you come to the city of Johannesburg, you see there are more and increasing signs of urban poverty, which means the planning of the cities and ourselves needs to adjust and be different from how they were 10 years ago to today. Maybe let me stop there, Comrade Mahlenge.
Thank you very much, Comrade Tembi. May I request either yourself or Comrade Parks just to do a little bit of an expansion on the work we're doing in municipalities in terms of addressing issues of dysfunctionality according to the existing indicators of what makes a municipality declared a dysfunctional municipality and the interventions we're making in that space, before I can then open up for a very conversational discussion with members of the media.
Okay. Okay, no, thank you very much and good morning, colleagues. In fact, we are currently, oh, you want us to swap?
Okay, no problems.
I thought I'm
Sorry, we know you have a very strong voice.
very, very, very strong voice. Well, thank you very much. In fact, we are currently going through a process, and when I'm saying we, sometimes I confuse between government and the ANC. But the department is currently going through a process of doing a comprehensive assessment on the state of local government, the performance of municipalities, and identifying areas of potential intervention in line with the Back to Basics program. And we would be using this to update our information on municipalities that require specific intervention. But I thought it would be appropriate to refer us back to the local government interventions workshop that we held a few months ago at this venue, at which workshop we identified a number of specific interventions to be made. The first was about strengthening government capacity and coordination in addressing the challenges in municipalities. As a result of those and the direction that the ANC has given to Government and Interministerial Committee on Service Delivery has been established, chaired by the Deputy President, that's focusing on addressing critical challenges with regards to municipal services and the performance of our municipalities. Secondly, there's been a focused attention on ensuring that expenditure on municipal grants improves. All municipalities receive grants from national government. There's been an observation on underperformance in relation to those grants. The Department of Cooperative Governance, as led by Comrade Tembi, has driven a process of, amongst others, converting direct grants to municipalities that are underperforming into indirect grants. Excuse me. So in essence, what that means is that government would spend on behalf of those municipalities that are unable to spend, so that services are able to reach the people that are deserving, and these matters are addressed. There's also been a focus on addressing intergovernmental debt. You would know that in the past week, as a result of our intervention, there's been a decision to extend the ESCOM debt write-off scheme to municipalities so that we are able to address whatever challenges were related to the ESCOM debt write-off scheme with municipalities. And a similar program is being identified with regards to water debt, to bulk water service providers. So it's a matter that's receiving attention because we have observed that in many instances, sometimes the deficiencies with regards to service delivery are as a result of disputes around payment, debt owed to these agencies, and credit control taken there. So it's a specific area of intervention that we have identified. The last point, I think, is also in relation to disaster management. were identified that in some of the municipalities that are underspending on disaster grants, people experience a disaster, municipalities receive the grant, however that grant is not spent because of deficiencies in the municipality. We have equally agreed that it would be important for the affected departments to assume responsibility in certain instances, to address the challenges in our communities and not leave communities in a desperate situation after a disaster has been experienced, simply because of the deficiencies that might be there in the municipality. Of course, this does not discount the fact that there is continuous focus on building capability and capacity in our municipalities themselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members of the media. Shall we have the conversation? There are a number of questions that were posed to the Secretary General and a few other comrades who came through yesterday that have a bearing on the mandate that these comrades have. And I think this is an opportune moment for us to ventilate those matters. I'm going to start with ANC. I saw your hand.
Thank you. I'm going to look from ANC. Just on service delivery now. I just want maybe the ANC to maybe rate itself when it comes to service delivery and how it's done. A lot of the municipalities are in shambles, I can put it like that. For example, I'll take water and sanitation is a huge issue, and the allegations of that being done deliberately by some of these service providers in order to get these tenders, deliberately damaging the infrastructure in order to get the tenders, and that would work, alongside the municipalities themselves, officials. Are you looking at making a lot within the municipalities themselves? Then on ESCOM debt, just an update maybe on how you plan on going about writing off some of these the municipal debts. For example, in Gauteng, I think all but one municipality is on a positive, doesn't owe ESCOM. How are you looking at scrapping off all those municipalities and their debts? And yeah, I'll start with it for now.
That's fine. I will come to the right. Maybe next time I must learn to start from the right. From the left. So if you want to get a shoe in, you must always try and stay this side first. Newsroom?
Junior Kumalo from Newsroom Africa. I just wanted to get a sense from Mr. on the review that was done by the National Planning Committee on the National Development Plan. Basically, they seem to suggest that it had failed, and instead of going in the right direction, we were literally going the opposite direction. It's not achieving what government meant to achieve. So I just wanted to get a sense on what are your thoughts on that, and can we foresee a situation where that plan is reviewed before 2030?
Thank you very much. I'm going to take Kaya. Yes.
Katabolo from the SABC. I just wanted to understand in terms of issues of infrastructure development. We know very well that there have been concerns around the prevalence of the construction mafia, and we know that there have been greater work under Minister Siklesi Galala to try and address that. But if you just maybe give us a sense of how has that construction mafia, that group, hampered on the delivery of services, looking at the period that the census is talking about here, 2012 to 2022, and also just looking at issues of local government interventions. We know the city of Tshwane right now, there's a lot happening there. Others even pointing to the deterioration of the winds that have gotten basically over time. We've seen this dispute that is ongoing between the municipal workers and the municipality. So what is your take on what is happening there, and would you say that there's a need for greater intervention and for you to zoom into some of these municipalities that would have disputes that would then tend to reverse the gains that you've amassed over time?
It's fun. Shall we stay with those? And then I will take it back to my comrades.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. I'll start with Aviwe. The damage to infrastructure, yes, is huge. Is major, and it's one of the reasons why in some instances service delivery or services that are received by our people become not sustainable, and in some instances come over a delayed time. If, for example, there's cable theft, your wastewater treatment plant doesn't work efficiently as it should, maybe you could be having a backup capacity, but it could be lasting maybe 4 to 6 hours. If the response rate on the material that is available at the stores is not something to be ordered. But there are ranges of hours where that disruption from cable theft, for example, move from around 18 hours, in some instances to around days, depending on what has been stolen and what is the cause for the disruption. And if the ranking of the service is with regard to disruption, then the question will relatively be limited, because it's a service that has already been given or has been made available. It's a disruption that is, as a result, it's man-made, it's caused. It's unlike where a service has not been given and has not been, the municipality has efficiently not given that service, but it is a damaged service. But it's not all that we are also saying we have provided a wastewater treatment plant and it has a pump, and therefore we assume it will not get, it shouldn't be protected. Municipalities they've enhanced, even in their budget, even in our own assistance through MISA, our asset management framework, which assists municipalities on once a property or an infrastructure has been developed, what are the key indicators of what will assist you, even including its maintenance, and ensuring that you portion some of that MIC for them to begin. You'll know why. One of the reasons why there's a regress is because there hasn't been sufficient investment in the maintenance of infrastructure, at least at municipal level. Maybe other spheres could relatively be better than us. So there have been those mechanisms of ensuring that we deliver, we protect, we also maintain, to ensure that there's long life, but there's continuous delivery of services. And there could be all those difficulties in between of the work that gets to be done or would have been done that creates disturbances. Then through regression of infrastructure, then you could have, yes, a service that gets to be delayed. You are correct, for example, when you're saying around Gauteng, I think also Junior spoke to it, that around Gauteng, and not only Gauteng, we could be making it as an example, that there will be disruption of services precisely because we might have not anticipated, for example, the migration growth that we have been speaking about. In some instances, even on census now, it was estimating that we would have reached what we are in 4 years to come. But for us to be at 62 million now, we actually have grown far ahead in what the country was assuming, even in terms of its own budgeting. So what does that mean? It means where you have needed 5 houses, you possibly need 12 at this time. And that you have built the 5, and there are still 12 that are outstanding, it doesn't mean you didn't perform, have you? You might have performed 100%, but your target shifts. And our calculation in the plan is always informed by the need that is on the ground. And the need in many of the instances, whether it's your access to water, whether it's human settlement, whether it's sanitation, the need increases. It doesn't decrease. So we've reviewed the space, yes. And I don't think the plans are not in line with the NDP first, because the Planning Commission deals with what the overall arcing plan is about. But the arcing plan keeps on moving in terms of the target, but not the need. And they rate differently from one area to the other, but they are consistent. It's water, it's electricity, it's roads, it's access to the economy. So you could put them in either way depending on where you are. If you are in a municipality like Ekurhuleni, where we are, access to services for the municipalities to be able to collect, it's different than a municipality in Mkanduli. They may have relatively roads here, but Mkanduli roads may be the first one. Maybe water here will be the first one, but overall, it's what does define what we call a need for a service, and it doesn't contradict one another, not at all. So, Katli, the issue of infrastructure and construction mafias, Comrade Parks, in his introduction as well, spoke about the IMC, which is coordinated by Comrade Paul, the Deputy President, which put ourselves and all the sector, in fact, we are Secretariat, together with his office in that committee. What it does, and it's not happening for the first time, it has always been one of the structures which assist in terms of the monitoring and evaluation of what do we do and what are the similar challenges that cuts across. So construction mafias, whether is Minister Chukunga and Sanral trying to do a road and whatever road that cuts through a settlement, it has a potential of it being stopped. Whether it's a municipal water project in a particular. So construction mafias are relatively a common phenomenon, which is a problem. Whether in any sphere of government that tries to build, whether you're building a school or whatever. So the team collectively, jointly with law enforcement agencies, then work and look into a chart of what we have as projects. I mean, we'll invite you some other time. We have what we have a PAN as a DDM a tool. What do we do there? We load all the information. What to what, from who's a councillor there, how much is the budget, what are the projects, so that we could be able to track it even without necessarily having to go to that municipality. Yes, it's still a work in progress in terms of it, but it creates a dashboard for you. It will even be able, at a click of a button, to tell you that, okay, the money for that project is not moving, without you being told by National Treasury at the end of the financial year to say, so and so did not spend, or spend half of what, and you get shocked as well. You know? So I think those are the intervention measures that we are putting. There are workers' disputes. But the good thing about South Africa is that limited and some of the review that is shown as an indication that local government needs is that there has been a basis for there's a bargaining council, for example. So when the municipality objected to affordability, it was taken to an affordability means test by the bargaining council, and they lost the case. We hope that they will be able to negotiate with the workers. We have also met with the workers and said to them, can you also look into a situation where you treasure what you have? If the municipality comes and say, we may not be able to pay you at once, but we can in 6 months, and we will compete it towards the end of the year, whatever. Look into a way of finding a solution. I'm a resident of Tshwane myself. In some instances, I don't have water. Some instances, I don't have power. There was 3 weeks where I did not have water, where I stay. And I was passing through the leak where the pipe had burst, and there was nobody to repair it because the workers were on strike. And we were passing that leak on a day-to-day basis. So we need the balance to ensure that we look into the conditions. Yes, there is a regression. It's not a secret. I mean, Tshwane, not so long ago, had, for example, access to Wi-Fi. If you go to Hatfield, you'll find students being able to study on municipal Wi-Fi. Today, there isn't that. And it could look like a small thing to somebody else, but imagine a child who has come maybe from a bursary or imala ibolegile or any go tatomkulwag to say, look, I'm giving you a chance to life. Put all you can to change your life and your family's life back home. So if you look at it in that eye, it is a major problem. But we are seeing a deterioration in almost all our metros, in our municipalities. And capacity is central. And as I've indicated, it is not only at metros. We are working across the clock in what Comrade Parks has said, assessing the municipalities, designing. Currently, as a COGTA, we place no less than 250 built environment specialists and experts in different municipalities to assist them with planning, to assist them with spending, to assist them with delivery, even before changing the direct grant into an indirect grant, if even those mechanisms don't work. But there's a multifaceted. SALGA is training, LGCTA is training, ourselves are training, legislation has changed, is one area we have not spoken about, but there's quite a lot of legislation mechanisms that we have introduced, that have already been signed by the President, that have been rolled out. We are in the public participation space now with the municipal support in improvement plans, where we want to articulate at length all these plans on how are we going to turn the sphere and the municipalities in totality around. But it also says to our people, we need to collectively go and ask them, what is the best system that works? Is it when we have all gone out, made a choice that we are led by our viewer here, and not made a choice of being a mix, because it doesn't work? But it is democracy, and we are respecting it. And we are not putting measures of saying we don't support that municipality because it is a unitary led, but they've got their rights. We are advising in Nelson Mandela Bay, for example, the mayor before this last removal had missed 2 motions of no confidence where we intervened. But when a party says you no longer belong in your party, there's nothing I can do. I will have to await for that party to field another person, finish their internal dispute, because the former mayor says, I'm taking you to court, you have fired me in an illegal manner. So we may put council in a standstill, but what else can I do? I will have to await that process. It's democracy. It gets to be filled, and council assume its responsibilities as well. So there is quite a bit that is administrative and governance with regard to what the law can do, but there's a line as well, which even if you may be willing to do something, you can't cross the line because the law doesn't allow you to. I think that was the 3 issues that were raised.
Thank you very much. I want to take a second round. I was also just checking, Agiwe, if your question, we were asked to rate ourselves as the ANC as far as our own internal assessment of our performance in municipalities overall. But I do note that comrades unpacked that to a finer detail in terms of the scope that we have. But you can follow up, Agiwe. You can follow up. If you can follow up first, and if you've got another question, and then I will come to Shazi.
The one on electricity, the one on the ESCOM. But besides that, you mentioned the deterioration, Minister, that you're seeing across a lot of municipalities in the country. Why are we seeing it then if maintenance is being done? Why do we have the problems we have with electricity and the problems we have on water if you're saying the maintenance is being done on the ground? Maybe secondly, we seem to be putting out a lot of fires as government, whether it be in water or electricity, as I mentioned, or even SASA, or just other fires that you're continuously putting out as government. Why then, maybe to that question again, why should South Africans then trust you to govern come election 2024, the ANC once more, if all you do is seemingly putting out all these fires that are coming in thick and fast, constantly, almost on a weekly basis?
Councillor Viwe.
I'm Kosnati Shazi from Power FM News. My question is directed to Mr. Parksdale, because it seems like this will be his area of expertise. Mr. Parksdale, I just wanted to find out if the ANC government is satisfied with the progress being made in returning hijacked buildings to their rightful owners. And in fact, it's not even called hijacked buildings. The proper term is problem buildings. if I'm not mistaken, in 2014, there was an extraordinary provincial gazette on City of Johannesburg bylaws on problem areas. So basically it gave the city, it gave provincial government the powers to assess buildings, it gave them the powers to evict whoever's not owning a building that's up to standard, that doesn't have a fire hydrant, electricity, all that. And the reason why I'm asking this is because a couple of weeks ago, 77 people died in one of the worst fires in South Africa. It was a hijacked building belonging to an NGO. So yes, my question is, are you guys satisfied with the progress made in implementing City of Johannesburg bylaws on problem areas? Considering that it's not just City of Johannesburg's responsibility, it's also provincial government, it's also national government, because Gauteng is the economic hub of the country. A lot of people are flocking into Johannesburg. So yes, are you guys satisfied with the progress in the work?
Thank you very much. I just want to check if there's anybody else. Oh, okay. I've got SABC.
It's Katawa again from the SABC. Mine is on the deployees that you have on the ground as councillors. I mean, each and every week in, week out, we'll see these service delivery demonstrations taking place, and often we'll see them getting very destructive, meaning that we're setting ourselves back. But what does this say to those councillors that you have on the ground? Do they reach out to you to say that we have problematic areas in 1, 2, 3, and 4 before it escalates and it goes out to the streets? Can you please help us as national to address that? Another one is on the Auditor General. We know very well that she always comes through with results and reports around the deteriorating state of these municipalities and their finances. Do we see that feeding into the work that you do? Do we see you advocating for greater accountability where the Auditor General's work is concerned, so that we don't come back next year and then we're still seeing the same problems on the ground, that there's no accountability that follows prior to or after the release of her reports and her findings? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is the last installment of our Q&A. So going. I'm going to take it back to my comrades.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, can I please go? I'm sorry.
So
just the last one.
It's a brainwave.
Yeah, sorry. Do you perhaps get a sense that some municipalities need help with controls regarding maybe probably the underspending? Do you see monies being returned to national when those monies could have been going to addressing some of these service delivery challenges, where then we won't say that there's no money, but there is money? It's just that issues of how it's rolled out and how it follows through in terms of the delivery of services, you see a little bit of a challenge where some of these municipalities are concerned.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Commissioner.
okay, I'll start so that I can move for the aspect of hijacked buildings.
That's quite some special.
Yeah, very much so. Hey, you learn every day. Thank you very much, Nati, for that. At least I've learned as well. I'm sorry, Aviu, you're very right, and I noted the question, the debt. You were saying, what is our plan with regard to the write-off and how are we going to manage it? Well, yes, you are correct. There is an extension which came actually, as Comrade Parks had said, as part of our intervention as COCTA in our discussion with National Treasury to ensure that the municipalities don't miss this window. Maybe just a step back. Some may not necessarily understand the role that COCTA played then, together with SALGA, to arrive at the level of a write-off. The last year of the late Kimi Makwethu, if you check his report on debt recovery of municipalities, it went on record to say 60% of those debts are not recoverable. The history of local government moved from 870-something municipalities which were integrated. So you are sitting in Ekurhuleni, there used to be a council of Jimistin and a council of whatever, small, which were running the affairs, and all of them were then put or amalgamated into a city of Ekurhuleni. They brought all the debts into one. So in the debt books of municipalities, there are debts as old as 19 before all of us were born in this room collectively. And the process for write-offs had always been put in abeyance because municipalities were encouraged to put the system and then start the application process of saying, well, there used to be Mr. Kekana. He has actually passed away when this house have moved hands into 3 or 4 beneficiaries, blah, 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 in line of descendants. He assisted in getting into that process, the late Kimi, to round up the debt of what is currently collectible. And we began to start a process. It's billions of rands. It's not a process where you can just wake up and say, all is done, we're starting on a clean slate. We then put mechanisms like where we write off, you need to put meters, for example, for the user pay principle. Some of the problems which emanates from no billing or lack of billing thereof is the originality of the land. For example, the people of Mahikeng now are refusing to pay because that land is under land claim. So they're saying, until you give us title deeds, we'll pay you for the water and electricity part, but not for the property rates. So there's quite a number of pockets of challenges, unemployment included, which leads to municipal debts. And then you've got to do that settlement and percentage it properly so that the municipality can remain sustainable as well. So you need to be able to look into the problem mix as well. Will they ultimately be able to collect, and who are they going to collect from? And what is their level of free basic services? Free basic services in an eye of everybody else, they are not a problem. But how about a grandmother in Soweto who then has got 10 backyard rooms and trying to raise money, but there's no way of measuring as to whether the water that I use is of market value for her. So you find that you give her water, as the constitution defines, 6 kiloliters, which is 6,000 liters of water for free a month. Ordinarily, and that's one of the benefits, by the way, why we are one of the best. Yes, yes. Tell me just one country which gives its elders 6,000 liters of water for free, not once, every month. That excludes your mtende, your pension, your whatever. It's a story for another day. Mam Lindy will come and talk about the social cluster basket. But I'm just saying, I'm showing these benefits of it. So then you remain with a basket which says, who is in it? Already I went to Mpumalanga. DM went to more municipalities than me, actually. The municipalities which were qualifying, there were 10. I went, I saw all of them. As COGTA, we were assisting them to fill up the process and ensure that they meet the requirements. But also beyond the requirements, what can we do to encourage business to also subsidize some businesses that are doing it? I mean, Emalahleni, for example, Wheatbank, because there's also Emalahleni in the Eastern Cape. There's quite a number of mines there. What can mines do while the municipality fight the portion of their debt? The mines can be able to assist us with regard to infrastructure. I went to Mkavanembeki. What can Sasol do in this instance while we assist the municipality to fight the debts? They are one of the 10. So in the 10 already, 7 had been approved and 4 are undergoing the process. So it's a system which we do believe it will give us benefits. But rather to that, we all carry a responsibility, and I hope you will assist us as well as members of the media, that our people must be encouraged to pay for what they use. It's a user pay principle. The little that you get, the little that you have, but also using it sparingly. We are still one of the few countries without water, but where we still water gardens, as if there's somebody who eats grass, at least. I'm just saying there's quite a lot of policy reform, Junior, that we may still need to do. And the issue of maintenance and the backlog thereof, I think I dealt with it, Avile, in my first take. Now, unless you think there's a point which you thought I did not touch very well. Yes, we appreciate their deficiencies. And one of the deficiencies are articulated to. At the inception of MEC, for example, if I'm not wrong, Comrade Parks has been established in 2002 or so. When MIC started, which is our municipal infrastructure grant, it was only saying you can do anything new and nothing else, which means invest in the infrastructure that for those who never had, because MIC is in rural areas, right? So which means if you are coming from a rural area that you may think of, it's possible that in Posh in town, the town was tarred. The township was not. So you will use the MIC to tar the township in this example. But we have realized that you have also rolled out as municipalities that you are now beginning to see deficiencies in what is supposed to be maintenance. So the calendar for maintenance was from what you are collecting and any other means that the municipality have, savings and whatever, deal with your backlog and infrastructure. And there was, and we have adjusted the policy needs now. Hence there is the introduction of utilizing MIC as well in terms of maintenance, building, planning a particular percent, even up to utilization for a project management fee that a municipality may, if it's small, doesn't have project management units, it could utilize the overall 5% of that to get expertise to oversee the projects, to deal with the quality of what we are delivering. And remember, delivery is not a static thing. You learn some of these things as you move along the way on how you could better yourselves. But that you are fighting fires, it's a governance story. It's a day-to-day. It's a day-to-day. It's not, there wouldn't be waking up to go to work as hard as we do if there are no issues to solve. They should be there. But the question for me, which will be, are we solving those issues? Are we able to rise to the occasion where there are challenges? Are we able to understand our environment that we could put instrument, processes, and systems that respond to challenges that are there? I can't remember any fire besides the one that I experienced in Northern Cape. And the other Northern, I know we are not talking fire literally. Yeah, yes. But I'm just saying this is a governance story. Systems have got glitches on a day-to-day. The question here is you will have to respond. Where I banked yesterday, I couldn't transfer. I'm not going to say that I bad bank. There are only 4 banks. But I'm saying where I banked yesterday, I could not make a transfer. I couldn't. And I physically couldn't do it because I'm engaged. So it's a system glitch that Postbank had. FNB will respond to it and fix it. Maybe they've already done, or they'll do so on Monday. Are they not worth it? No, they've had a glitch, they must fix it. We have a glitch, we must fix it. We have dysfunctional municipalities, 66 by the way, of which if you look in comparison 2021 to 2022 on how we're doing, we moved from 16 to 27, an addition of about 10 or so municipalities that moved from medium risk to stable. So that's where our focus is. We're focusing, we have categorized even the risks. There's a medium risk, there's a low risk. Our area is to move both those categories into green, and we deal with the 66. So when you're talking about MSIPs, improvement plans, they are specifically about the 66, and we know what are their challenges, and we know what are they having a problem. Taking it bigger, you take that number to 154. We've got support packages for everybody who's dysfunctional, medium, and low risk, because we don't want them there. So we have got COCTAs in each and every province. The ANC also oversee all of us, hence we are here on a Sunday. It's a story for another day. But it's being overseen. It's us being called to account for areas where we have got responsibilities. Deployees in government, they're actually deployees of political parties. Now the party where I come from is the only one which put requirements at local government, interviewed openly, selected, rejected others and said, you are not yet ready to be this, you are not yet ready to be that. I can't talk for others, I can talk for the ANC. Because we have realized that we also need to ensure that we capacitate both at public representative while we also have professionalization of whether the public service or local government, the two must go hand in hand. Because councillors, in an instance of local government, play a major role in terms of overseeing what are the responsibilities, designing where the money must go to and defining it is a huge responsibility, even before managing it and ensuring that there is quality. So those controls in systems and municipalities for underspending, it's actually what Comrade Parks slightly spoke about earlier on, when he was saying that direct grants and indirect grants. The direct grant is your MIG in its way, where he moves it to you as municipality A and you must spend it. So if it's now you are unable to, we assess you, right? And we say, we are going to put you under Schedule 6B, where we will assist you as a municipality to spend. Yes, I agree, we might have not been doing it every time and everywhere where we should be, because in the last financial year, we turned 900 million back, right, as local government collectively, which is something, in our view, shouldn't have happened. But maybe we must also be in comparison. It's still too much. But we have spent on what was allocated to almost 90%. So we are trying to boost and up that 10% must not go back, because that's money meant for services, no matter how minute it might be in terms of a percentage, but it's still a rent too much for a person who does not have a service. So we do have those controls. We are a transferring agent. National Treasury receives Section 71 reports, oversee them almost on a month-to-month basis. We have got indicators, we have got a DDM support tool which tells us what do we have, who's spending and who's not, and then we have got systems and measures on how we could be able to support municipalities.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Comrade Parks.
I
think he's saying that we were playing the Ekurhuleni of the ANC. He won't be in trouble with the principals back in the newsroom. Over to you, Comrade Parks.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. I thought maybe I should start with the question, how do we rate ourselves? And say we released our own rating when we did the manifesto review, and there was cynicism. People were cynical as to whether in fact the ANC is reflecting real numbers in terms of access to services, in terms of government performance and so on. But there's a recent result that has been released by an independent body, which is the census. And the census tells the story. So instead of me saying this is how we want to rate ourselves, let us say the results of the exam have just been released, and use the results of the exam as a basis of measuring how government has performed. And if you read the results of the exam, I'm sure you would agree with me that in fact the census indicates indicators even better than the ANC had rated itself. So the question sometimes is whether we relate to our daily experience or whether we relate to the stories that we hear. You are asking, so why should people trust you? Why shouldn't a person trust when they receive potable water at their homes and you want to convince them that they are not getting water that historically they didn't get? Because those people are receiving the service. So if you want to rate us, if you want to measure us, you measure us against a set of indicators. And you say, look, this is how you performed. These are the deficiencies, these are the successes. But I'm just urging, well, let's go back to the census and say, look at the numbers. On the basis of those numbers, let's start ticking the box. And that box will indicate something slightly different, in fact, fundamentally different from what you might have expressed as, well, should people really trust you? So I thought it's an important point to make. The second point relates to the debt write-off. Just to add that, in fact, the President has directed COGTA to work with Treasury and Water and Sanitation to resolve all issues related to debt, including, of course, the extension that's been granted to municipalities, whilst the other outstanding issues between the departments and, in fact, SALGA are being addressed. So it is a matter that's receiving attention. You would know that not all the municipalities that qualify applied for a whole range of reasons that were raised by the municipalities, and an intervention has been made by the President and directed COGTA, Treasury and others to resolve all issues that are outstanding in that regard. Our performance against the National Development Plan, and as we walked out of the session, out of the National Executive Committee earlier, we were considering a presentation. And one of the issues that's raised in the presentation relates to, of course, performance against the National Development Plan. And it says to us that, during the period of COVID, this economy lost more than 4 million jobs. And post-COVID, we have recovered almost all those jobs. It's not individual, it's not the same person for the same job, it is the number of people that are in employment that the economy has recovered. So of course, there was a significant impact. If you're losing more than 4 million jobs, that's a significant impact on your economy. If you recover that, that's a very good starting point, because then you can rebuild from there. Should we say we will ignore the period of losing more than 4 million jobs and expect that, in fact, we would jump to the next level? I think it would be unreasonable. I think, though, if you say, I've recovered the jobs and I'm now building on what I've recovered, you have a different understanding of how you are implementing the National Development Plan. The Black Swan events that have impacted, of course, COVID being a Black Swan event, that impacted on the performance of the economy and how you recover and work on that. And I can comfortably say, given the science of engaging with the numbers in the meeting, we're pretty satisfied about the level of recovery, and we're satisfied about the plans in place to move the economy forward. But let's acknowledge the Black Swan event and the impact that's had on all of us. There's a point, and I don't think we always make it, and sometimes there's the disadvantage that we sit here almost like we're the Ministry of COGTA as opposed to being members of the National Executive Committee. But one of the most important successes of a democratic dispensation in this country has been the creation of a progressive labor environment. And that is underpinned by, amongst others, central bargaining, the right for unions to organize, the right for workers to be represented, bargaining in a central bargaining system, and ensuring that you have a healthy labor relations environment. It's one of the most significant victories of freedom in this country. So every time anybody seeks to undermine central bargaining, we must be worried. We must be concerned, because in fact, we must guard against the trampling on the right of workers. It doesn't mean that, in fact, municipalities, as part of the local government bargaining council, are not allowed to apply for exemption. It is a question whether the municipality that continues to apply for exemption has made it a norm. To seek exemption as a norm, and when engaged with workers, that you seek to ignore what the workers are saying. Now, the Department of COGTA does not interfere on those matters, because they are between the employer and the employee. The employers are represented by SALGA. The employees are represented by labor. There's a central bargaining system where there are disputes, they are resolved through central bargaining. And therefore, the extent to which the Minister of COGTA comes in and says, resolve this labor dispute in this way, is fairly limited, because we respect the central bargaining system, and therefore you can't have government imposing itself over the central bargaining system. It shouldn't happen in the local government system. It shouldn't happen even in private sector bargaining, except in instances where the impasse is having a significant impact. So is there an impasse that would require intervention? I suspect that we're reaching a point where government would need to facilitate a resolution to the Tshwane situation. But we must be concerned, at least as the ANC were concerned, about the extent to which there is an undermining of the fundamental principles of central bargaining in that environment. And it's something that requires attention. I'm not sure about the guru part. But there are a number of things I will say. The first is that, and this is talking from my history in the city of Johannesburg and of course a bit of distant memory, is that there were a number of plans put in place to address the issue of hijacked buildings. Starting with the bad buildings program that was initiated, where buildings would be attached by the municipality because of raids and then sold to private sector, and they would be able to develop those properties, to what was the latest scheme, at least by 2016, that existed in the city, which was the inner city property scheme, which sought to ensure that not only do you release land, but you also release the buildings as we have attached them, because what happens is the municipality would attach the building, because inevitably, because it is hijacked, they are not paying rates, you use that as a mechanism to attach the building. The question is, how do you decant the building? So you created a decanting system that would allow you to relocate people into decant buildings so that these new buildings can be redeveloped, or the old buildings can be redeveloped. And the scheme had relative success in relation to that, because you addressed one of the more fundamental problems about what do you do with the poor in particular, and what do you do with those who are not necessarily qualifying beneficiaries. So you've got foreign nationals, you've got people that have received housing benefits before, you've got people that earn more than would be qualifying for government housing schemes. So you need to decant them into alternative buildings before you can develop new buildings. So that was, broadly speaking, the scheme. I can go into a very long presentation about how it was designed and how it was intended to work. And the problem became when we did not seek to intervene on behalf of those that would be decanted or evicted, if you like. Because as soon as you don't address the issue of the people that are evicted, your problem recurs. They go to other buildings, you have continuous fights. So that became one of the gaps. Some of it is as a result of in fact, a court case, the Blue Moonlight case, that then arrived at a conclusion that if there is an eviction by a private property owner or any property owner, that the municipality necessarily must find alternative accommodation for everybody. In essence, what that meant is that you would have to stop building houses for anybody else throughout the city of Johannesburg and only address the inner city. And even then, you would not be able to meet the demand. So it's part of the complications that the municipality deals with, to say, if we simply follow Blue Moonlight, as the case is referred to, it means we must stop building houses. We must only focus on one component of the city. And even then, your national housing policy says that you must have qualifying beneficiaries. So you can't be building houses for foreign nationals that are not qualifying beneficiaries. Those people are still in your city. You still need to do something about them. They will need alternative, even if it's rental accommodation, but you're not going to use your subsidy scheme for free housing schemes to direct to foreign nationals. That's not how the national housing policy works. So how do you deal with that complexity? Becomes a continuous problem that you need to deal with. It is about continuously improving on policy. I can say that at the last shot, at least when I was there in 2016, we had a revised scheme and a revised set of policies that were presented to council. I'm sure the colleagues that are currently there would be able to report as to the status of that revised scheme in relation to how you deal with that problem. Yeah, I think I'm, yeah, I think Rishab.
There was one of the Auditor General.
Oh, okay. On the Auditor General, I think firstly we have been, and this is now changing hands, we have been, as government, we have been in constant interaction with the Auditor General around addressing the outcome of municipal audits, not only from the point of view of addressing the outcomes of the municipal audits, but how do we create mechanisms of building the necessary capability in municipalities to address audit outcomes and to introduce the necessary controls. In fact, the agreement with the AG is that instead of just waiting for the end of the financial year and judging retrospectively, let us begin to anticipate where the problems are so that we can direct support directly to the municipalities that require that level of support, and are mobilizing partners across the board to be able to assist in addressing those challenges. Some of them are control issues, basic control, some of them are systems issues. So we even redirecting in the Department of COCTA, the Municipal Systems Improvement Grant, to help assist proactively in dealing with systems issues in municipalities to mitigate negative audit outcomes. So it's a continuous process of improvement, but a different orientation. We don't want to sit and say, let's wait for the end of the financial year. And that's the agreement that's there with the Auditor General to say, where there are markers, where there are pointers about things that require attention, let's develop proactively mechanisms to mitigate that. Accountability.
Is emanating from the Auditor General's report, where there are losses and there are corruption and the links. We actually are pushing for more accountability for people to be held accountable for some of these losses coming from these municipalities emanating from the Auditor General's report.
We continue to do that. In fact, continuously the Minister of COCTA continues to write to specific municipalities where areas of deficiencies have been identified and demands specific responses from the provincial government and also from the municipality about the action that's being taken. So the department does take a proactive interest in those matters.
I'm certain that we are done now and that all your matters of concern have been comprehensively responded to, colleagues. And I do wish to thank you for having made the time for this interaction in the spirit of continuing with our manifesto review, where we are accounting to the nation about the things we are doing to address some of those pressure points that the country is facing. And this is the one that we're just tackling this morning. Thank you very much. The press briefing is adjourned.